Hello, everybody. It's so great to be here. I want to start just by thanking President Weingarten for her incredible leadership of this union and this movement. And thank you to the AFT for inviting me. It is a real honor to be here. We are living, thank you. We are living in a golden era of labor organizing. Workers have made monumental strides over the last few years, from auto factories in the Midwest to the AFT's major victory last month in Fairfax County, Virginia, one of the largest school districts in the country. Last summer, I joined the Writers Guild of America on the picket line to hear about the challenges that they faced. They shared what so many workers across America have seen firsthand, that when markets become consolidated with economic power concentrated in fewer and fewer hands, working people lose out. The agency that I chair, the Federal Trade Commission, was created more than 100 years ago during the first Gilded Age. It was a time when the Industrial Revolution had transformed the American economy, but robber barons and industrial trusts had amassed enormous power that they could use to coerce consumers, workers, and small businesses. Congress passed the antitrust laws and created the Federal Trade Commission to crack down on illegal business practices and stand up for everyday people, including workers, against unchecked corporate power. The FTC is still doing that 110 years later by making sure that our markets are fair, honest, and competitive, and that all Americans can get a fair shake. Ultimately, labor law and antitrust law are fighting for the same thing: your freedom in the marketplace. The freedom to get a better job in a tight labor market, the freedom to strike out on your own and start a small business, the freedom to organize and to play employers off of each other when it's time to renegotiate your contracts. Often, the biggest threat to your freedom as workers is a market where corporations don't have to compete hard for your labor and instead can get away with squeezing or abusing their power. Take non-compete clauses, for example, which lock millions of workers into bad jobs and block them from taking better ones. All too often, employers quietly tuck these clauses into employment contracts so that when workers try to switch jobs, they get hit with intimidating lawsuits and tens of thousands of dollars in penalties. Workers should have the freedom to choose the job that is best for them. But because of non-compete clauses, 1 in 5 Americans are forbidden from freely changing jobs or launching their own business. Some workers have been forced to uproot their families, forego better opportunities, and even face financial ruin. And as Jennifer Abruzzo at the National Labor Relations Board noted last year, non-competes can even chill workers' right to organize. It's much harder to go on strike if you know that you can't easily switch jobs. That's the point, of course, to lock you in and keep you quiet. When the FTC looked into this issue, a number of AFT members took the time to reach out and share their thoughts. Overall, we received 26,000 comments from people across the country, including a special education teacher in Ohio, who shared that she was hit with a $2,000 fine after leaving her job. Her former employer threatened to put a hold on her teaching license, sue her, and even contact a credit agency until she paid up. We also heard from hundreds of healthcare workers with non-competes who were forced to leave their communities and abandon their patients, sometimes depriving rural areas of critical care. A doctor in an underserved area of Appalachia told us that in his community, non-compete clauses had pushed healthcare workers to retire early or to stop working altogether. Others were forced to sell their homes and relocate out of state just to continue practicing medicine. And non-competes are not just empty threats. Companies can and do enforce them with devastating consequences. They can even be enforced when workers are laid off or fired, severely limiting how and where people can find new jobs. Non-compete clauses rob people of their core liberties. And so to make sure that workers can be more free, the FTC recently issued a rule that would ban non-compete clauses from all employment contracts. Because a market where workers are captive to a single company is not a free market at all. The most resilient markets are ones where workers and consumers have choices and where businesses face healthy competition. Competitive markets means that workers have options. Unions have more leverage in bargaining and are better positioned to threaten a strike. But when it's all just one big business, that business can cut wages and benefits and degrade working conditions without having to worry that their employees will quit. These are all factors that the FTC considers when we review potential mergers and acquisitions. In recent decades, the healthcare sector has been rapidly consolidating. Hospitals are merging, and private equity firms are rolling up practices, sometimes at the expense of patients and workers alike. ER doctors have told us that some private equity firms have entered emergency medicine only to slash the staff and force the remaining employees to work punishing hours, leading to burnout and worse patient care. If we at the FTC believe that consolidation or acquisitions will unlawfully harm communities, we won't hesitate to act. Over the last 3 years, we've blocked hospital mergers across the country, from New Jersey and North Carolina to Utah and California, because we believed that this illegal consolidation would lead to higher prices and worse care, and sometimes worse conditions for workers. During the pandemic, when you needed personal protective equipment to do your job safely, some vendors required massive minimum orders of 10,000 masks or 200,000 gloves. Giant hospital systems could afford to buy in bulk like that. But if you are a small local provider or a teacher in a rural area, you just had to put on a garbage bag and hope for the best. Luckily, the AFT secured PPE to keep you safe, and the FTC has been scrutinizing supply chains to make sure that our markets are safe and resilient through healthy competition. Consolidation can have consequences in every sector. When banks merge, they can become too big to fail and need bailouts. When film studios merge, sometimes that means that certain stories won't get told. And when tech companies merge, it can threaten our safety and privacy online. We've seen that when social media and gaming platforms turn a blind eye, children can be exposed to sexual harassment and abuse. And I've met with parents who have lost their kids due to bullying on these platforms. No business should ever place profits ahead of children's safety. I know the AFT is fighting this with your Real Solutions campaign, and the FTC is focused on it too. We've proposed limiting ways that companies can collect and monetize kids' data, including in schools, because kids should be able to play and learn online without their parents and teachers having to worry that they're being constantly surveilled. Surveillance can be dangerous for workers too, as you all know. Employers can use it to track you both in and out of the workplace, infringing on your fundamental right to privacy. And the FTC has made clear that we won't hesitate to act when businesses illegally track or harvest people's data. This kind of enforcement will become even more important as AI risks turbocharging surveillance technology, giving companies new ways to track consumers, workers, and children alike. The AFT has released guardrails to protect the safety and privacy of educators using AI, and the FTC will do our part to make sure that this technology is used in a way that empowers people, including workers, rather than harms them. Of course, the FTC's tools are just one part of the efforts to ensure that workers can enjoy real economic liberty and opportunity. And other leaders in government during the Biden-Harris administration have been at the forefront of this work as well. The National Labor Relations Board is cracking down on labor rights violations, including surveillance practices, and securing remedies for workers whose rights are violated, including back pay. The Department of Labor made 4 million more workers eligible for overtime pay, which adds up to over $77 billion in lost wages just for teachers. The Department of Education is continuing to work with state and local leaders to address our nation's educator shortage. And of course, President Weingarten and the AFT are leading the way, fighting and delivering for the millions of workers who keep the heart of America beating every single day. As any history teachers here will know, the United States was born when we rejected the coercive power of a king across the pond. But Americans didn't overthrow a monarch only to be ruled by economic tyrants. Real freedom requires freedom from all forms of coercion, whether it comes from a throne or the boardroom. And for workers, that includes the freedom to choose where you take your labor and talents, the freedom to bargain for better wages, and the freedom to enjoy life outside of the workplace. The FTC is working hard to preserve all of these economic freedoms, and we will continue to keep our doors open to workers and the unions that represent them. And we need courageous people like all of you to join the fight against unchecked corporate power. So we invite you to come to our open commission meetings and share your comments and thoughts. Talk to your state and local policymakers, and do what you do best: organize and hold powerful actors to account. Together, we can make sure that labor's golden era keeps going and fight unchecked corporate power with the greatest asset of all, the power of the people. Thank you so much.